strikes. Maybe he's in a labor union. Master Yi becomes untargetable as he leaps forward to strike up to 4 different enemies, dealing physical damage to each one, with bonus damage versus minions and monsters. Each bounce will target the nearest enemy it hasn't hit yet, but he will land next to the first target, wherever they may be. Though it's a spell, Alpha Strike can critically strike for extra damage. Finally, though it has a long cooldown, each basic attack reduces the cooldown by 1 second, and yes, that includes Double Strike. Alpha Strike has a number of uses. First and foremost, it is a damage spell and allows Yi to clear the jungle and minion waves with ease, especially thanks to the bonus damage to non-champions. Second, it's great for chasing. You'll appear next to your first target no matter how they move and even if they flash. And third, the most difficult, you can use it for dodging damage and crowd control. From skill shots to turret shots, even things you couldn't escape from otherwise, like Karthus' Requiem. A well-timed Alpha Strike will ignore it all. For all these reasons, take a point in Alpha Strike at level 1 and max it out first. Yi's W is called Meditate. Just what it says on the tin, Yi freezes in place and channels for 4 seconds, meditating on life, the meaning of the universe, and wondering whether or not he left the oven on. While channeling, Master Yi heals himself each second. The healing scales with ability power and is increased by 1% for every percent of health he's missing. Also, while in his meditation pose, he takes significantly reduced damage from incoming attacks of all sorts, although that reduction is halved versus towers. The channel can be cancelled at any time by attempting to move. Oh, and as an added bonus, Meditate resets the attack timer. We'll come back to that a bit later. Meditate has a very long cooldown, but allows you to heal quite a lot even with 1 point in it. Similarly, the damage reduction is nothing to sneeze at, and a timely activation will let you ignore half or more of an incoming burst. For all these reasons, take a point in it early. I like level 2, but as you want to be focusing more on damage as Yi, max this one out last. The Wuju Bladesman, of course, practices the Wuju style, whatever that means, seems to involve swords, and goggles. Lots of goggles. His E passively grants bonus attack damage based on a percentage of his total AD. This helps him scale throughout the game, even if he's not building a lot of attack damage. When activated, Yi's basic attacks deal bonus true damage for the next 5 seconds, and again, yes, that includes Double Strike. After those 5 seconds are up, the passive bonus is lost until Wuju style is off cooldown. That bonus damage doesn't affect structures, by the way, so don't bother wasting it when you're taking out towers. Wuju style is a pretty simple ability. Activate it when you're going in for a fight, but generally leave it off. No reason to lose all that bonus AD versus minions and smaller monsters. It scales really well into the late game, as you might expect, so take a point in it around level 4 and max it out second. Finally, Master Yi's ultimate is Highlander. There can be only one true Dunk Master. Passively, champion kills and assists reduce the remaining cooldowns of Yi's other abilities by a huge percentage. Even without the rest of Highlander, this lets Yi reset his abilities and keep on stomping. But then, when you activate it, the true dunkage begins. For 10 seconds, Master Yi gains massively increased movement and attack speed, and becomes immune to any and all slowing effects. While active, if he gets a kill or an assist, Highlander's duration is extended by 4 seconds, letting you keep the pain train rolling. For obvious reasons, take a point in this one every chance you can. Master Yi can take a variety of summoner spells depending on what you're doing. Smite is your weapon of choice, of course, if you're jungling. Teleport gives you some fantastic map presence, letting you show up to gank or split push from nowhere. Ghost is kinda like an extra instance of your ult, and when combined, no one is escaping from you. Flash lets you hop walls without help, the one bit of mobility Yi lacks easy access to. Heal is like a miniature ghost and will let your fairly squishy self take a little bit more damage. Cleanse is also a good option if the enemy has tons of CC that's locking you in place. Take your pick. Though he is an attack damage assassin, Master Yi scales best with attack speed. Damage is important too, but the faster you hit, the more often you'll get a double strike, the more quickly Alpha Strike comes off cooldown, and you'll get to hit for true damage more often during the activation of Wuju style. To that end, my favorite set of runes is a full page of attack speed, especially in the jungle. If that's too much for you though, try a set of attack speed marks, flat armor seals, scaling magic resistance glyphs, and movement speed or attack damage quintessences. For masteries, go for 2109, getting as much damage as possible and some movement speed, plus the buff duration in the utility tree. You're an assassin after all, so you need to get in there and deal damage as fast as possible. Note that we didn't take the Warlord damage masteries in the offense tree, opting instead for Spell Weaving, Blade Weaving, and Frenzy. This gives Yi a number of situational bonuses that he'll be triggering frequently. Itemizing with Yi has a number of options. In the jungle, start of course with the Hunter's Machete. In lane, you might start with a Crystalline Flask, a Doran Shield, or a Doran's Blade, depending on your matchup and confidence. In the jungle, you can turn your Hunter's Machete into either a Wriggle's Lantern or the Spirit of the Elder Lizard. Personally, I feel that Wriggle's Lantern fits best with Master Yi, snowballing hard into the late game just like the champion. If you're confident that you can get it to become a Feral Flare in the first 15 minutes or so, grab it. If not, and you'd rather have your bonuses immediately, go for the Spirit of the Elder Lizard. If you do get your Wriggles though, it's also a good idea to grab a Spirit Stone. Their passives stack together and allow Yi to clear any camp nigh instantaneously and take on the Dragon and Baron on his own. Since you can't upgrade it, you can always sell the stone later. Your next big item, or your first if you were a laner, should probably be a Blade of the Ruined King. That passive procs with every single attack, and Yi's fantastic attack speed plus double strike will be setting it off constantly. And the active is great for him too, letting him stay on top of them and healed up at the same time. For boots, I recommend Berserker's Greaves, but if you're having trouble with heavy crowd control, perhaps get Mercury Treads instead. The Home Guard enchantment is my preferred option, particularly when you take Teleport. No escaping you, even if you aren't using Highlander. Static Shiv or Phantom Dancer both give stats that Yi love. Static Shiv is great for additional wave clear, but if you want to become a traditional Dunk Master, why not go for a Double Swords? Or all Double Swords. Youmuu's Ghostblade gives not only some fantastic stats, but what amounts to a miniature Highlander for its active. Last Whisper gives plenty of damage and lets you crack through the defenses that the enemy will surely be building against you if you're kicking their butts. If you're getting way ahead in game with lots of gold to spend, grab an Infinity Edge. It's the ultimate item for someone using basic attacks and crits for most of their damage, but super expensive. Ravenous Hydra is good if for some reason you still need even more wave clear. That's as far as the jungler's concerned anyway. In lane, it's fantastic, giving you tons of sustain and wave clear all without spending your mana on Alpha Strike. You might even get it first. Oh, and once you've reached the late game, feel free to trade whichever boots you've got in for a Zephyr, all the stats it had and more. If you need some defensive options, Guardian Angel is always fantastic. Banshee's Veil and Mercurial Scimitar help if heavy crowd control is keeping you down. Maw of Malmortius is a strong, straight anti-magic option, and Randuin's Omen will give you an equally strong armor option. Lastly, for a more offensive-defensive item, consider Wit's End. Attack speed, extra damage, and a ton of magic resistance. Inside the jungle, using your Q is really straightforward. Push button, kill things, receive gold. In the lane though, and while ganking, target selection and timing are much more important. In lane, for example, if you're trying to harass them, you don't want to target them directly. Remember that you will always land next to the first target, so if you target them, they might well just walk you back into their turret. Instead, target nearby minions. Those don't move much at all and let you deal damage without much repercussions. When going in for a kill, you generally want to avoid using Alpha Strike as your opening gap closer. See how far you can get by running directly at them. Highlander is great for that. Once they've blown all of their escape spells, then use it. If you time it right when theirs go off, you'll travel with them. Additionally, be aware of what spells you need to avoid. Q makes you untargetable, so if Syndra blows her ultimate, Tark tries to stun you, or the tower is about to kill you, a well-timed Alpha Strike will let you ignore it all. Similarly, a well-timed meditate will let you ignore quite a lot of damage. Cutting the damage from someone's whole combo in half is fantastic. Remember that minor bonus about meditate that I mentioned? That it resets your attack timer? That means activating and immediately canceling the ability right after an attack lets you get another one off immediately. Doing so after a double strike lets you hit for a nigh instantaneous 3-strike combo. Some might say it's not really 3 strikes since the second hit of double strike deals half the damage, but that hardly matters. The on-hit damage it applies is the same, and you'll have plenty of sources of that from Blade of the Ruined King, Feral Flare, and Wuju Style. Speaking of Wuju Style, don't forget to turn it on in any fight with a champion. It's free after all. If you get a kill, the cooldown's getting reset almost immediately. In the jungle, I prefer not to use Wuju Style for clearing camps. The cooldown without the reset is quite long, and I prefer to have it available in case a gank comes in. If you know you're safe though, you might use it for the larger camps, the white, blue buff, red buff, and of course, Baron and Dragon. Master Yi has a very fragile early game. He's squishy, his cooldowns are very long, the mana cost on Alpha Strike is high, he doesn't get the cooldown resets until level 6, and if you're building Feral Flare, you won't have all that many useful stats from items until it's completed. But if Yi gets any advantage, any lead at all, he can snowball like a monster into the late game. In the jungle, Yi will want to spend most of his time farming. Gather Feral Flare stacks and all the gold you need to buy your items. If you can get away with a gank, do so, but generally you'll want to wait until Highlander is available. You don't have any crowd control yourself, so you need to rely on your allies for that, the red buff from the jungle, or your ability to keep up with them with your ult. Once you have a few items on you, Yi can solo the dragon, and, if you're good enough, he can even solo Baron Nashor. Taking out Baron all by yourself is risky, but worthwhile if you can get your team ahead from nowhere. If you're a laner, you might want to let the enemy push, that way you can farm safely from underneath the tower, use your Q to harass, and generally stay safe. Once the laning phase ends, Master Yi makes for a fantastic split pusher. Alpha Strike and the items we've suggested, such as Static Shiv and Ravenous Hydra, make quick work of minion waves, and his attack speed lets him cut through towers like butter. If your team needs you, or you need to escape, that's what Teleport or any of his many speed boosts are for. When you do go for a team fight, Master Yi is a risky gambit. Dive for the squishy targets and kill them as quickly as you can, giving you the cooldown resets on the rest of your abilities. Dodge spells where you can with your Q, and methodically crush them all one by one, dashing in and out of the fight as needed until you have yourself an ace. Master Yi is a crazy snowballing swordsman. Time your alpha strikes and dive the carries, and you'll lead your team to victory. So thanks for watching, everyone. If you've enjoyed this guide, please let me know by hitting the like button. Speak up in the comments below if you have advice or questions. We're all here to learn. Subscribe for future stuff like guides, gameplay, and general silliness. Follow me on Twitch for streams, and Twitter and Facebook to see what else is going on. Till next time, I've been Gin, and you've been watching me talk about a video game. So let's go!
I will show you the path.